I feel like the ending, the end cutscenes, the end few chapters are so much more of what I would have wanted for the rest of the game than what the rest of the game is.
Yeah. It felt like they padded the game. It felt almost. And seeing what they did at the end, it's like, funny thing is, it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts. A whole bunch of just nonsense in the beginning, and all of the plot progression is at the end, the tail end, the last act of the game. It's exactly the same way, and they're just thinking, how do we pad this game out with just the same, and then let's put all the plot at the end. It's reminded me of that. I think. Just
what about Horizon Zero? Was it like that? 'Cause I never ended up finishing Horizon Zero. I got pretty far, but never got to the end.
So, I'll say the difference between something like Death Stranding and something like Horizon Zero Dawn is that Horizon Zero Dawn utilizes its open world. It utilizes its open world in a way that it doesn't feel like it's confined to the main narrative. It feels like there are different stories being told in this world, and you can go and explore and find them. Whereas something like Death Stranding, the side content and the other activities to do in this open world, very yeah. It and also, like as Moen's said in the past, like there's no like difference between a main story delivery and a side delivery. So you don't really feel as if there's anything rewarding in terms of gameplay. Not just like what you get out by the end of it, but like rewarding in terms of gameplay with the side content. Like it's very much sort of travel to a destination you've been to before as part of the main story, and deliver a package that you've like a bunch of metals or something, and it's that experience over and over again in terms of the side content, which is the difference between Horizon and Death Stranding, I think.
I feel like there was side missions that were so pointless to the point where you had to literally we had to deliver pizza from one end of the map to the other. There was like this one point where you were like in this like heavy BT terrain, and this guy's like, "Oh, can you deliver pizza to me up north?" And I was like, "Fuck you!" It's like, no.
Yeah.
I feel like the pizza deliveries were the only ones that affected your speed ranking, because I know that was the one that never went up, right? You remember they grade you on your quantity, your speed, your condition, right? And I never seem to be able to get that up, but it seems like the pizza missions, right? Put that up particularly.
I think a lot of those speed ones are in the side quests. I think there's side quests, like the side missions to do with speedy delivery things. I think those are the ones that up that.
Yeah, the premium option.
Yeah. But you never have the desire to do that because the side content is so dull and unengaging. Yeah. Like you don't feel like you want to do any of it.
I think for the side content being what it is, it's fine. But for the main story content being on that level is what the thing is. So we're saying, the side content is indistinguishable from the main stuff. I would say that I don't mind doing the back and forth trekking over the same geography like 7 times on side missions, but the main story had nothing else going for it apart from maybe like a rock slide, like you remember rock slides, or the snow, or the first time you encounter something. Yeah. Did you guys like the twist with the pizza delivery side quest?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we'll be talking about spoilers in this. So like anyone listening who hasn't finished it, but the guy who's the pizza delivery dude. Oh yeah, but some might be listening for just opinion's sake. So I want to make that disclaimer, like to make sure people know. But the pizza delivery guy, the pizza delivery guy is Higgs. Like that's the dude who you're delivering the pizzas to.
The pizza dude says, his name is Peter Englert, right? And he's saying, "Oh, my dad's dying, deliver me a pizza." And then I think it's so hilarious because it fits with that character. He's been getting you to deliver his pizzas like since the beginning of the game, and while he's spying on you. And then when you go inside, like, you get to go inside his room, the secret room at the back of that place, and you see pizza boxes all over the place. And he's basically, the wall says, "Fuck Sam, fuck you, I hate this guy." Like he's scribbling all over the wall. He's like obsessed with Sam, right? And I found that really, really funny. Like really funny that all this time he's been pretty much right next to him.
the whole game is about it's not just about the perception, but it's the perception of who's actually like telling the truth, really. Like there's the whole conspiracy, right, with Bridget and Amelie and you know Die Hardman, right? There's that whole conspiracy going on, and towards the end you start going, well, is Higgs actually the one who's responsible? Is he actually the one who's sort of doing the whole kind of thing? So I don't think he was scrapped. I think his purpose was always to fulfill like this role as the puppet dude. Yeah,
He
the
was
puppet dude.
sub-level. Yeah, he was like a
Yeah.
sub-level villain, and then you find out who the bigger villain is, right? Like, if you read his journals, right, before you finish the game, obviously when you finish the game, you get his journals. But before that, if you find his journals, you kind of find out that he was like the first Sam, one of the first guys with Dooms who can keep coming back. So he was normal. He was completely normal. And then he heard about Sam, and I think he almost had like a jealousy of Sam at some point, and then Amelie kind of manipulated him, got into his head, and he became that way. But in his journals, he seemed like he was like Sam at 1.0, right? And after he went over to Amelie's side, he became like the complete antithesis of Sam, right? Like, oh, I want the world to end. F it, it's gonna end anyway. You know, they talk about this syndrome they have, right? Like delivery syndrome, mule syndrome, where you just have an obsession to deliver, just obsession, and it makes you like really violent and antisocial and like deranged, right? So they developed him plenty. I feel, even though he may not have much screen time, his presence in the whole game was pretty big. I would say, like
even after the boss fight with him, I think his presence is still kind of felt. Like there's the whole discussion that Fragile has towards the end of the game regarding the fact that she couldn't kill like Higgs in the end, and the whole thing with Higgs is that he was a dude who just wanted to reach out to people. Like he wanted to do the exact same thing that pretty much Sam's doing, really. Like he wanted to reach out to people and make those connections, and he thought that Fragile's ability, right, was the thing that would allow him to do it. But then, of course, Fragile is made redundant by Amelie, but Bridget, but the whole kind of thing there. But by this person who's much more powerful and is much more connected to the beaches, right? So there's still, that's after the whole Higgs stuff is done with. There's this whole kind of continuation and realization that your perception of Higgs at the beginning is he's a terrorist, he's a bad guy, and you know what? It's actually a what's the word that I'm looking for? It's basically like a version of what's going on in real life. People will paint people as terrorists, as villains, as the bad guy, and that's basically what Higgs is. Higgs is similar to the organizations and the people like the media and governments point at and say, those are the bad guys, those are the terrorists, those are the people you're supposed to be against. So you're made to believe over the course of the entire game that that's what Higgs is. And after the whole thing comes falling down, after the whole media and government bullshit comes wide open, you find out that Higgs was just like you all along, and that he wasn't necessarily the terrorist that everyone was claiming him to be, that he was actually just some dude who wanted to do something good, but was twisted by someone who also wasn't really evil. Yeah, basically, yeah.
I liked him. He's memorable. He was memorable. Even though he got they disappeared him right after a point in the game. I feel like he was probably one of the only thing memorable about this game. Like, I can't say that about most of the other characters. I think Sam, he's probably even more interesting than Sam. Like, this is the problem with the game.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about, okay, so one thing that I really didn't like about the game was the fact that, okay, so let's just say compare it to Assassin's Creed. When you're going up a hill in Assassin's Creed, you're going up a hill and it feels like you're doing parkour, right?
Yeah.
When you're going up a hill in Death Stranding, it feels like you're pushing a freaking wheelbarrow full of bricks.
Yeah.
It was this was one of the most annoying parts of it, as well as being caught by BTs every 25 seconds of your time crossing from one end.
You know, the problem is when we went into this game, we knew this is what we'd have to do, but we didn't know we had to. We didn't really know we had to do this
for this long.
The whole damn game. And the only time, and it's funny that the only time the game gets fun, and that's what you told us before we finished it, right, is when it goes linear and you're not delivering packages anymore. And what does that say about your game when the only time it actually gets good, and why Kojima says it gets good 50% of the way through? Kojima himself said it, but no one understood what he meant till we actually played the game.
To be honest, it seems like this last update that he did, saying that he'll turn off the how many times you get hit by BTs. It kind of shows that he's getting a hell of a lot of criticism because of that.
Yeah, it's very much a too little too late thing with that kind of like, oh shit, like people didn't actually like the BTs. I'm gonna have to do something about that. Like I suppose I should tell people I didn't actually finish the game, like actually play it all the way to the end. Like I'd stopped at like, what was it, end of chapter 8 or something like that.
Yeah, chapter 8.
Just purely because of the BTs. That was the final straw for me.
We released some update to turn off the BTs.
We were there when he raged. We were there when he raged on stream, and he just gave up. Even though I told him he was so close to the good parts.
Yeah, and it was because of the BTs. It was because I got so irritated over the fact that I'd just done a segment with BTs and I had to walk all the way back to Hartman, retreading ground I'd already retreaded about 500 times, then getting hit by another load of BTs on the way back to Hartman, doing the stuff with Hartman, getting a cutscene, getting my reward for doing such shit gameplay loop. And then when I'm leaving Hartman to go and get to the bit where the game gets good, BTs appear again. And I'm just sort of thinking, like, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to keep doing it.
When I played through it, I think what I did was that I split it. I didn't play like 5 or 6 hours, 8, 9, 10 hours straight on the whole entire game. I split it within days into like 2 hours, and then 2 hours, and 2 hours. Yes, it got repetitive, but for some reason putting it just as that as a specific amount of gameplay that I put it as, I felt like it was more like a relaxing kind of situation. Yes,
I did that. I did that too, but I did that as well. But then you realize it doesn't end. Then you start realizing it's not.
When I said the apartment part, that's when you start saying, "Okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore." It's specifically where Baker stopped the game. That's when I started feeling the same exact thing that Baker's feeling, and then the fact that the BT.
I stopped it there as well for like a good 3 weeks. Yeah.
So
yeah, I was stopped there for a long time, right? A month.
I play a lot of simulation games, so I know how it feels like to walk from one end to another for like 5 hours. For example, the Isle. It's pretty much you're being a dinosaur, just walking around, eating, pooping, and drinking water, right? So I'm kind of used to that because I kind of find it relaxing in a way. So my rating of the game, which was an 8.6, stays at an 8.6 because I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there are flaws and there are really annoying situations that not everyone is gonna like the game.
So that's your score for Death Stranding?
Yeah, and I know, and that's
8.6. Wow, okay.
Was, yeah.
That's too generous even for me. Baker's on the harsher end.
Wait until people hear my score.
Yeah, one thing I want to say before Baker says his score, because you need to hear this. The thing is, I'm gonna expand on what I said before about it. Right, is that the game never forces you to engage or interact with it the way it wants you to. Like when I was watching Baker's stream, he was using those carriers. You know, those level 1, level 2 cargo carriers. I was like, I never use those. And then they say
motorcycle the whole way through.
Same. And the game tells you, okay, we're going to make it easier. We're going to reward you with things that will make it easier and quicker for you to do it. I could not be bothered to engage with that because I was carrying packages and I was still getting S ranks. You know, I was still roly-polying, fucking falling, stumbling into the location where you have to deliver and getting S ranks. I think 70% of my scores was S ranks. I was like, so this game doesn't even encourage you to use these things because there's no sense of reward when you can just struggle your way to the point in about 10-15 minutes and turn it in. So I never felt rewarded by anything.
I think
Boots,
it would have been
ladders.
worse if they actually added that you wouldn't get an S rank because you rode a motorcycle the whole way through. If they didn't do
Yeah.
that and you were forced to actually walk with those trolleys in order for you to even get an S rank,
Yeah.
I would think I would be pissed. I would get really mad.
Yeah, it's too. There's no reward. It never feels. I never feel like I've got an advantage over my terrain or my surroundings because they scale everything with your things. As soon as you get something cool like a fast bike or a speed skeleton, they shove snow in your feet. So then that becomes useless, and then your stuff is degrading constantly. It's
How
like
many
there's no
times
reward.
Did my bike get stuck on the snow is ridiculous.
See, that's the issue that I always had was, particularly when you're wanting to go, because the game forces you to go over the same ground that you've basically been on about 2 or 3 times before, so you want to use like a vehicle, right? And I remember there's that bit, I think it's like in the 3rd chapter or something, that really rocky area. You know what I'm talking about? When near there's a river, and you've also got that crevice
that
area
really
where
rocky area where you
that,
literally bumpy everywhere. You can't ride
yeah,
or
exactly.
anything.
So like, what happens is because you have to keep on going over that bit, I was getting really agitated with using vehicles, and then it starts happening again when you're entering like other areas. So when you do find a vehicle, the game then forces as you're saying, like the terrain to just stop you from using it. So I felt like I had to use the carriers in order to take tons of this shit that I was carrying all the time, because of course you have to balance Sam every 2 seconds because he's got the balance of like a 2-year-old, and then you've got like, so I had to like whisk it all along, and then I could of course use one of them as like a skateboard, but even then like it can't go up hills, it can't do any of that kind of stuff. So like you get to this point where the realism of the game starts impacting the game, like the enjoyment and the pleasure of it, like it starts becoming more of a hindrance than something to enjoy.
And do you know how I know it didn't encourage people to play the game the way I wanted to? It's because by the end of the game, I expected people to put like proper zip lines. You know, the zip lines that like get you from one end to the other really quickly, right? No one was doing zip lines but me. Like I was playing online throughout the whole play session, and I was trying my best to like connect zip lines up. But in my whole game, no one was connecting zip lines up properly to make things easier. Like you can completely bypass a mountain, you know, to get from here to here, especially in that last leg where they make you go all the way back. You remember that? I remember when you were talking about having to go all the way back. It took you days, you know, in playthroughs. And I was like, where are the zip lines? I'm playing online. I'm placing zip lines down. Where are they? Where are these roads that we need? This road has not been developed in ages. Like that rocky area that Baker's talking about, apparently you can build a road over all of it. But no one was investing in building it. I kept coming back to after 30 hours. No one was doing it because no one could be bothered. Like it just didn't make your journey more efficient. It just shaved off like a couple of minutes. And you're still stumbling and falling over, and BB's crying, and you're like, you want to smash your controller. Did you guys have BB coming out your controller, or did you have him coming out your TV?
I think he was coming out of my controller, I think.
Oh god, I hate that.
I had it in my controller for the first half, and then I switched it into the game because I couldn't really like when he started crying. I was like, why does this sound so far away? So I switched it, and then
during the BT fights, it was the most annoying because you can't rock BB during the BT fights where they suck you in. But he kept crying. It was making me angry, more angry than anything. I was like, shut the hell up, like while I'm trying to jump slowly to get out of the way. Yeah.
So you were talking about like
you mean kids in the future. I don't know if that's gonna
No, but come on, like, I'm surrounded by a giant squid monster, man. Like it's not gonna be like that.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to. You were talking about
sleep at 5 in the morning, or like let's just say you're gonna go sleep at 8 o'clock because you gotta wake up at 5 in the morning. The little kid's gonna wake you up like 4 or 5
That's
times.
why not everyone who can have kids should have kids. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, not me, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah. So you were talking about the online aspect like a second ago with the whole issue of not finding like those sort of like zipline things and stuff. I want to bring up the fact that all three of us, before Death Stranding came out, we all wanted to say that we were gonna build things and help each other out to get through the game, right?
if we did,
Like
Oh,
we were all gonna say,
dang.
"Oh, we were gonna build roads, we're gonna build bridges
Man, I was so
together, we're
excited
gonna."
to see you guys.
We,
Like, we were building new
yeah,
stuff.
doing what Kojima wanted. We were
we,
gonna do what Kojima said that he wanted people to do. Yeah.
yeah. So
That was
we were
amazing.
saying like, "Oh, we were gonna pee in the same spot, we were gonna grow like little gardens all together and stuff," but we never, and I want to stress this, never came across anything that any of us here created. Like we didn't. I planted some bridges. I remember I made like a ladder bridge thing near the beginning. I was telling Yvette while she was streaming. I was, Yvette, it's somewhere around here. My bridge that I made out of ladders. You might be able to find it. You might be able to use it. And she was searching around. She was searching up the coast like again and again. She couldn't find it. And like I'd built bridges, I'd built roads, I built all this stuff, and neither of you two had come across anything that said, "Oh, this is made by Baker," or "Oh, this is made by Evet," "Oh, this is made by Moen," which is the issue, right? I'm connecting with people that I don't know, and I can't connect with those that I want to have the connections with. Right?
That'd be,
So,
it actually would improve the game a little bit if we did have the option to do that, because we would probably be going through the same emotions at the same time. And it's like, oh, I'm there. Oh, wait, let me go see your bridge and stuff like that.
So here's the thing. We all probably tried these shared element things for a few hours. Then we realized how fruitless and pointless, and we weren't getting the feeling that Kojima said. Kojima wanted everyone to feel connected. Oh, you're alone, but you know your friends and everyone around the world is doing the same thing as you. I after a while, I never felt connected. I didn't feel connected to the holograms I kept talking to. Oh, you delivered it in one piece. Thanks, Sam. Like talking to holograms and not feeling like I know any of these people who building bridges, and I'm giving them likes. It never made me feel connected. Like I would say in Destiny, I feel more connected. Like a shitty game like Destiny, I feel more connected to people and a shared experience than say this game. You know, like I'm sure we all stopped bothering to dump metals into bridges and metals into these structures because we were so obsessed with like getting to the end of the game because it was getting so boring and monotonous. Like Kojima just didn't populate this world with enough, I think.
Another thing was that once you finish the a road and you're like, damn, I just freaking collected over 3,000 metal, right? And that took you like, let's just say 30 minutes, or just 3,000, and then you have to collect all the other ones and stuff like that, and you have to kill the BT in order to get the other portions of the roads to be complete. Once you finish that, you feel so accomplished, right? Then you realize it was just like not even 0.5 of the actual road, of the length of the actual road in order to finish it. And then you had to find 3,000 even more metal for the next part of the road.
The thing is, the weight of the metals makes it even more monotonous. You know, the basic metals are really heavy. They make you drag like several hundred kg of metals to this place, and even then you can't complete that road. Then sometimes you get rewards, right, for getting like a good rank, like lightweight metals, right? Like they give you a lightweight version of metals which you can carry, which are much lighter. But by the time I even get to use those metals that they rewarded me for the main missions, they're all dead or degraded. They either the rain destroys my metals that I've got, or like why? I don't understand why Kojima wanted to make it so hard for you to accomplish anything, even when it was simple as just dumping metals into a road. Like I remember I went to the farm. Do you know the farm where the Timefall farm is, where it's all like wheat and yellow and flowers? They rewarded me with like I think 1,000 kgs of something, like of the metal, really precious metal. And I was like, yes, I can carry this, and it's not going to take up much weight, and I'm going to put this into the zip line, and I'm going to put it into this house. And by the time I got it to the nearest one, it was either gone because of BTs fucking dragging me down, or snow dragging me down, or the rain getting to me. It's like like you say, it's just, this game doesn't want you to accomplish anything. It wants you to connect everywhere, but why is it constantly fighting you to do it? And the motivation to bring America together, blah blah blah, just didn't entice me enough to like push through this same copy paste BS. Like I don't know how you gave it 8.6. I'm still thinking like, did you give it?
that is
The more
really
that I
like
think
a
of it, the
generous,
lower
very
that it's
generous
going,
score.
so
That's what
But-
happens to me. It happened to me. That the more I played the game and the more I kept on thinking about the game, the
Thing
more I
is,
hated the game.
I played it pretty fast. Like I played it pretty thoroughly, and I remember streaming it. The only reason I give it an 8.6 is because of the ending part. It's the last 7 to 9 hours.
The ending.
That's it. Everything else is just I don't even remember it. That's how.
See,
bad it was.
my issue with that, the ending, I'd completely agree with you, is a really great ending.
The emotional
But-
roller coaster it put me
It
through.
is, yeah.
It was.
But
It was intense.
I always have to remember that this is a game, and a game can exist without a story. Like a game can be a game and can be a great game, and it doesn't need to have a story or
Yeah, like
have a very
Fortnite.
good story. Well, no, I'm not necessarily. I'm not saying Fortnite,
Yeah.
but like Mario, for example. Mario is a prime example. Like original Mario is a prime example of
Well,
a
that has
game.
lore though. That's been.
Well, no,
that's-
but not
Yeah, but-
original Mario. Not we could even say Space Invaders, original Space Invaders, or original
Even
Pac-Man. Or
though
any of these.
the title that still has lore. It doesn't matter if you're putting.
No, it has lore after the fact. It's not a game that's created with a. You don't play Pac-Man and go, I wonder what Pac-Man's history is. I wonder how deep and rich his
Yeah.
character is.
Pac-Man's a
You
good
just
point.
play. But this is what I'm saying, right?
Pac-Man,
This like
does even Pac-Man have a lore or a story behind him?
well,
It does.
I think
It does, but people have made one for it. That's the
but
thing.
all built after the fact. Built after the fact of the original game. Mario's main story in the original game is you save the princess from an evil dragon dinosaur creature. That is the story. That is it. And Mario, the original Mario is so iconic, but it spawned a genre of games. It was so loved and appreciated by a bunch of people that it excelled into the history books. So a game can exist without a story or without a decent story. It can still be a game. So the issue of me being able to give it a high score just because of the ending is because I have to look at the fact that it's a playing experience. This would have been better as a movie. If it was a movie, I'd be probably giving it the same score you're giving it as a game. But because it's a game,
Yeah.
and
Without
if I took the story away for a minute and looked at it as how a
As
game
a
should
game,
be,
it would be a
gameplay
2.
first, yeah, it'd be very low. The only reason that I give it the score that I'm giving it is because of the story elements. I
What's
can't
your
give it
score?
any higher. My score is a 4 out of 10. My score is, and I'm sticking by that, because I think the only good elements of this game are the story, characters, and performances, and the music as well, perhaps.
Yeah, but
But-
minding you, he stopped at a certain point. He never finished it.
But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I don't think that matters.
Nah,
in
it
terms
doesn't
of
For a
the
lot
matter.
of
gameplay.
people, it does though.
Yvette,
Yeah,
see,
but-
Yvette's on one side where she thinks that you have to finish a game to really give it a definitive review. I'm actually with Baker. I don't think you should be told to push through a game that you're just not liking just so you can, reserve judgment on it. I think it's like saying like you can only have a review score from people who
It's like you're
like the game.
it's like you're watching a movie, right? If you watch the movie halfway,
But you're
what's the
talking about
point? 'Cause you
story.
don't know the ending.
But as I said before, this is a game. There's a big difference between a movie and a game in terms of the way that you take that experience on. As I said, a game can exist without a story. A game
I
can
think-
exist without all of that. So
Like,
there's a
to
very
Yvette's
different
point,
way
though,
of...
like I'm not agreeing, but I'm saying like I think what you probably saying Yvette is if Baker had played through the good parts, right, the gameplay parts, right, towards the end of the game, you think his score might be better, like
Might
if
have
he
been
played that.
throttled if he didn't get if he actually went through because you're going through the pain, you're going through the suffering of it, but at the same time you're getting what you were looking for all along.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Like, it's not like I want to just quickly. I want to say that they say it's a new genre. This game is blah blah blah. There's not a single
No, there's
original
no new
gameplay.
genre.
No,
There's
there's yeah,
There's
it's
not.
very much patchwork
So
of different.
Baker didn't miss
This is
anything.
a
Baker didn't miss
simulation.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
He,
like
he didn't, but at the same time, is more of that feeling, that the
Yeah.
feeling that you feel of that accomplishment, that you actually went through it at the same time.
I didn't feel I
Makes-
accomplished anything. Like the rain washed away everything by the end. Do you remember when they say the rain is just everything you've done is washed away? Now walk your ass back to Port Lock.
Well, it
Port Lock,
depends.
next city.
For certain other people, if, for example, like I've gotten when I think when I put it up on YouTube, I got some comments where people did like the game and did end up feeling that feeling, but then some people didn't. So I guess it depends on what you like as a gameplay. For Baker not finishing it is just pretty much up to him. But I know that there's people out there that are gonna say, "Oh, you didn't finish the game, so it doesn't count in a situation."
well, yeah, no, I know people like that exist, but I could bring up the example. Jim Sterling is a prime example of a reviewer who didn't finish Death Stranding and gave it his review. In fact, he gave it, I think, a 7, actually, and he didn't finish the game, which is surprising, to be honest. But he didn't finish the game, and he set up a review, and people were okay with that, because I think there's as I said, like there is a difference between critiquing and reviewing a movie than a game. I played 30 to 35 hours of that game. I played the experience. I played I got a lot of time into it. So I don't feel that my
appropriately to
gameplay is
the majority of
well, if the majority wants to fight me, they can fight me. But I'm standing by my 4 out of 10 and not having finished the game.
The Kojima kind of failed in the sense of going through, captivating everyone's attention. He failed to do this game.
I mean, look, I finished the game. I played through the game. I didn't watch cutscenes. I actually finished it, and I would give it 6. So even if Baker finished it, I don't imagine he would have gone above a 6. Yeah, so and we still agree that we all can agree, right, that this was the most disappointing of the 2019.
With what I've been seeing, I think Kojima might know, because I also been seeing him kind of making these announcements of him making like he's gonna go into anime, or he's gonna go into film development and stuff like that, and kind of not really even the gaming industry, he's kind of putting it to the side in a sense. I'm guessing that it didn't go so well as he thought.
So here's the thing with that. I think it was Kojima's plan since he started that he wanted to make movies rather than video games, because of course his history is that he wanted to be a film director and he failed at that. People didn't want his movies, they didn't want him to be making movies, so he decided the only avenue that he liked and could experiment with was gaming. And I felt ever since he's finished off the MGS franchise that he's done everything he wanted to do in terms of experimenting with gaming. He's created iconic bosses. Like, there's another thing, like, there's no innovation, there's no creativity in the bosses. Everything is either a copy-paste of something he's done before, or just completely generic, like, you know, shoot it until it dies.
Higgs versus Sam fight was a complete copy.
Okay, so let's compare this to let's look at The Witcher. Okay, so when you play The Witcher, you're actually interacting with these characters, and constantly there are cutscenes, even the things that don't even relate to the story. It still feels like it's part of the story. Like it's in a very unusual way. They did that really, really well. Now with Kojima, you're walking around entering a bunker, which there's millions out there, same bunker. You're not really interacting with the NPC. This whole hologram situation is very dull and very kind of dead. You're trying to connect, but in reality, you're alone in the world, and then no one's really there, and you're talking.
You live underground, right? They all live underground.
And to add to that, the only bit that you actually interact with, like, ignoring the main cast of characters, I don't know if you guys remember the whole little story bit to do with the husband and wife, right? The couple.
That's the only part.
Very obnoxious couple.
But the issue with that is, in the end you find out it doesn't work out. But like, when you're interacting with that couple, in that cutscene, when you brought them together, Sam does nothing. He does absolutely nothing in terms
Completely
of
silent.
talking or
Completely.
interacting with these two actors. It's almost as if these two actors weren't even on the same set as him, as if they were shooting off somewhere else, and they just plonked the Sam Porter Bridges model in to make it look as if he was there. He's basically just like a robot. The only thing he does is he puts his thumbs up or something like that at the end or something.
Bronzo puts his thumbs up, yeah.
Stupid like that, and it's like, how on earth am I meant to feel like I'm reconnecting the world if Sam doesn't even feel like he's connecting as an actor to other actors, performance wise, if he's not connecting with those people? How am I meant to feel as if this is a real kind of like real kind of conversation or real kind of interaction between people if Sam stood there like a window store dummy, just sort of watching them sort of kiss and then walk in and then like being updated as if he really ever really gave a shit, which by the cutscene it doesn't really show any indication that he cares about this entire thing. Like,
It was a cheesy monologue for 5 minutes. A whole cheesy monologue.
That was long. When you wanted it to be over, but it kept going, you're like, oh my gosh, you're good.
I mean, I like the story. I like the fact that it's telling a intimate story in a world where that intimacy is lost. This whole kind of close relationship between two people. Like, you're in a barren landscape. I like the story, but it's so.
Because it felt like you did that for nothing.
Yeah, it would honestly, actually, what it does is it goes against the purpose of that little story. The purpose of that little story is to show Sam that humans can connect, that humans can, despite this huge gap, they can connect and it can work. But the fact the story then in emails goes to the point where they're breaking up, kind of goes against the whole meaning of that story. It's sort of like, what was the point in? You're right, Event. Like, what's the point in doing it if like it completely nullifies the purpose?
I did like that moment where Dead Man hugs Sam at the end, because that's a thread through the whole game about Dead Man not being able to connect, and in the shower, like, Sam doesn't want to be touched by Dead Man, and eventually, I think Sam subconsciously gets over his phobia. Like, it's a phobia. It's not like he's gonna die if somebody touches him, so he doesn't like being touched. But if a Dead Man actually fucking hugs him at the end, right? And I like those little threads. I think we all in agreement. The story is great. The themes are great. The pro-life, pro-humanity, we need to come together is great. But like Baker said, you can have a game without a story, but you can't have a game without good gameplay. Like, a good game without good gameplay. Like, I think
along with this story, what kind of gameplay do you see it actually succeeding in it with the story?
So what I've spoken to Morin about this. I feel the game should have had the linear aspects. It should have had like the whole kind of like the aspects that were later in the game, right? But like going across like a path that maybe has little split offs for you to explore. So you could be traversing a rocky kind of like outward sort of cropping, right? And there's a cliff down below and everything, you're trying to navigate it. Or you could be in an icy sort of ice field and you've got to traverse the ice carefully or sort of crack and break and all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking like more linear, but with like slight little like non-linear-ish kind of little paths that split off that allow you to explore, maybe find logs, maybe find little tidbits of information about the world and about the characters, and like seeing bits that existed of the world before. And then you reach the other destination at the end of this relatively linear path. The package is delivered, you get your cutscenes and stuff, and then you move on to the next linear path that moves on to the next outpost. But then, of course, it's different. Maybe like it's a forest, it's a muddy forest that you've got to traverse, and you have the little outcroppings again where you can explore and find things and move. Like just that kind of thing of trying to create more sort of semi-linear sections that are unique and different, and allowing you to have that ability to explore and see these little things, and then mix it in with like maybe your BT, maybe mix it in with like boss encounters with interesting bosses, not just shoot until it dies kind of bosses that were in the game.
And then sorry, Baker. You know that scene right at the beginning of the game where the BT's footprints are following you and you're holding your breath and it's really, really tense. The game never feels like that when you're in BT territory. It feels like you're in a rush to get through, run through as quick as you can. You barely even have a chance to see the footprints. You got all shit cluttering your HUD, tiny ass font with items placed all over. It never feels intimate. It never feels tense. Like it never feels like the horror that they
Like
did
the
it. If they
beginning, yeah.
like the beginning, and there's two sins, right? There's two sins this game does. One, this is part made by Guerrilla Games, who made Horizon, right? Look how interesting their world was. Like their open world was so interesting. You can see vantage points, audio logs for the past, like Baker was saying. You never found nothing. Yeah, a lot to see. And two, the problem with this game is that they give you the illusion of choice. They tell you have a choice, but you don't have a choice. You think, okay, I can circumnavigate this BT area, but it'll take more ladders and ropes. But that's BS, because there's always an invisible wall stopping you from going over a mountain. So they literally funnel you through a fucking BT territory. So where's the choice? There's literally no, one or two missions, there's a choice, but they give you the illusion of choice. Oh, do you take the long way around, or do you go through BT territory and take the risk? There's no choice. There's no choice.
Yeah, I think what they should have done with instead of this whole situation of BTs randomly placed in the map where every time you cross, you're actually there, because you can go through one direction where it says BT, and if you don't want to go through that and go through the other directions, there's even more BTs on the other end. So it's like, what is there to go? Like what you said, there's an invisible wall. It's because there's BTs scattered in too many locations. I feel like if they took the BTs, they cut it in half and just have it happen like
Lion BT, the squid BT, they're all the same. There's no difference. They all swim through the same mud, the tar, wherever it is. You just chuck a grenade or shoot them, or there's just no differentiation. It feels like copy and paste, but in the worst way possible, where they look different. You think they act different, but they're not really different. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you'd already fought those lion BTs twice, and then the first boss they give you, Higgs summons, is that same boss. You must have been disappointed, like, oh, I fought these things 2-3 times already. Now Higgs is making a big song and dance about this lion squid boss that he summoned that I've already fought like 2 times. It was so underwhelming. You expect something crazy. Yeah.
I think the only boss I noticed it was BT boss I noticed it was interesting was the one, the big one. Yeah, when you're in the city at the end, when Higgs sort of attaches, that one is terrifying to look at, because it's this big lumbering thing that's walking towards you and stuff, and it's like, fucking hell, like.
What did you think of the cliff bosses? 3 of them. I only found the third one interesting. The first 2 were just...
Yeah, the final one was the Vietnam one, right? The Vietnam sort of area.
You have to stealth and
Yeah, that one was interesting. That one looked interesting. Yeah.
Third one was harder. The first 2 were easy. I felt like if you got seen, you would just get mowed down by bullets.
See, I'll be honest. I did like the first cliff one purely because I liked the whole arena of it. I like the whole running through the trenches and hearing Cliff murmur and sort of go, "Give me back my BB." Like I love to go and, like, I don't know which trench Cliff's gonna pop out of and start shooting at me. But I like the whole kind of, the boss fight itself wasn't that interesting, but the arena and the whole sort of in the trenches, running through the whole kind of like trying to find where he is, sort of like a maze. I like the arena. The second cliff boss fight was terrible. I did not like that. I thought it was a boring arena. I thought it was just a rehash of the first time you fight Cliff. Just shoot at him again. Like, the only difference, of course, is a World War II version, right? It's set in a fucking World War II bombed city or whatever. But I found that one awful because it wasn't anything different from the first one, and it was in a worse arena. So I was sort of like, the first one I liked because of the arena. The second one I didn't like at all, and the third one, from what I saw, was probably the most interesting out of all of them.
You know, Mads Mikkelsen was really great. Like in all those segments, like the best thing about those, even in the boss fights were annoying and stuff, was Mads Mikkelsen finding out more, his little segments every time you go on a mission and stuff. And he won that award, didn't he? The VGA awards for best performance, right? But we can talk about the other performances. I thought Deadman was way better.
Deadman, Guillermo del Toro.
Not Deadman, Die Hardman, sorry.
Die Hardman, yeah. I agree with you. I watched the scene at the end where he's talking about the fact that he loved Bridget and he loved Cliff, the two people that basically, like, he loved it. Like, he was torn between the woman he loved and the man he loved because he'd saved him, right? And that whole scene where he breaks down in tears in front of Sam, I teared up. Like, despite the fact that I hated the game and I was totally disconnected from everything else to do. Like I didn't feel the impact of some of the other stuff because I had such a bad experience with the game. But that scene there, seeing him when he falls to his knees and he starts hitting his fist on the ground and tearing up and crying, and that performance, I'm going to be honest, I think that's the best performance in the game. That scene, and Moen was talking to me about it, but when I saw it, I thought some of Mads' performances were great, but this one was really special. This one made me, a guy who was so against the game, tear up, and that was something. Definitely something. I felt sorry for him because he was a dude who fell in love with Bridget before the whole situation happened. But he loved Cliff because he was with Cliff before. He was the guy who'd saved him. So when he's pointing the gun at Cliff, and Bridget is saying, "That is an order. I told you to shoot me." He still hasn't shot Cliff. He still hasn't shot him yet. Like, he can't do it because he's like, fuck. And eventually he does do it because he realizes he doesn't really have much of a choice. But yeah. I think I started understanding, but perhaps he wasn't a villain when they're looking at that log that he made. Do you remember the scene? The scene where Deadman and Sam are watching the log. That's when I started thinking, like, maybe Die Hardman isn't, like, we're sort of getting to this point now where we're perceiving that Die Hardman's a villain, like, halfway through the game, because Deadman's taken us into the shower and saying the director might not be all we think he is. So we start thinking, oh, Deadman might be Die Hardman might be a villain, like, oh fuck, like. But then when you see that log, it changes your perception again. Like,
you know what it is? Die Hardman has nothing, like, like in the beginning of the game, like, I'm not for like social justice war or anything, but like, I was always wondering, why is the only black character like a butler, dressed like a black butler, right? He's got that cravat and black coat, and he's like president's like butler. I was like, who is this guy? And we know nothing about him for the whole game. You know nothing, and then they drop the bombshell on you about how close he was to Cliff and how he figured into the story. And I was like, I was impressed, but I don't blame you, Yvette, because they don't really do anything with him for a huge part of the game, and then they expect you to believe at the end that he's a good guy, sympathetic figure. But he definitely had the most dramatic performance moment, and I believed him. I believed him that that's why he wears the mask, because one, obviously that mask belonged to Bridget, but two, he wears the mask so he can deceive people a lot easier, because obviously he looked guilty as sin, man, if he reacted, whenever he saw Cliff or whenever he saw things happening that he knows more about than he's letting on. So that's why he wore the mask as well. Like, so I feel that was great. I think his arc was pretty damn good.
He didn't want people to know that he was John. That was why he was wearing the mask, because of course John had supposedly died, right? And so he came back wearing the mask and wanted to, of course, as Moen's saying, like, deceive people, not for necessarily malicious reasons. I like to think that when you think about it, no one in this game is really a villain. Like, no one is actually, like, even Amelie and Bridget, the fact that they're the extinction entity, right? Even they're not really a villain. Like, it's just, you know, she was basically just unfortunate. She was unfortunate to be born as the extinction entity. She was unfortunate for both sides of her to be split off. It was just a bunch of unfortunate events that put people in positions that they weren't in control of. And then of course other people start painting them as the heroes and villains. That's why Sam at the end doesn't want to be painted as the unsung hero, as the hero that saved America. That's why he leaves, because he's like, these titles, these bad guy, good guy kind of things, it's just a load of bullshit at the end. So that's why he leaves.
Politics.
That's out. He's like, you know what? Like Cliff wasn't a bad guy, Higgs wasn't a bad guy, like Amelie and Bridget weren't bad people, but people painted them as such. And so then you feel that you're going on a journey for that person because you believe you're doing the righteous thing, when sometimes it might not necessarily be the case, because people don't know the outcomes, people don't know how things are gonna to react. So like it's a very kind of like the theme and the story is what makes this game really, really good in terms.
Did you guys probably teared up at the resuscitation scene at the end, right? At the incinerator with BB, where
it's
the
YouTube
heavy.
video that I uploaded has like my reaction to that.
But you know what got me the most, that gut punched me, is when you can see the BTs of the other babies that had been incinerated coming around. Like, for me, that's such a pro-life message. Like, he could incinerating baby. Like, think about it, incinerating these actual physical flesh and blood babies. I don't care what Dead Man says. These are actual living babies, right? That are repurposed. Yeah. And then he saves that baby by smashing it out of the tank, right? And then all the little BT babies come around, man. That was heavy for me. Like, not only because, like, not because I'm not pro-abortion, like, personally, but it just hit me because, you know, like, the whole Louise, you know, around the end you find out it's not a boy, it's actually his daughter.
He would have probably never thought that it was a girl in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
incinerated.
Yeah.
You have a point. It kind of that point in time when I was watching that, it kind of reminded me of how can you? Well, I don't know. It's just
It has a very subtle political leaning throughout the whole It's deep, and that gut punched me.
It gut punched me too.
And it's also I was also just sort of thinking it's also a full circle, full sort of like reset to where we were pretty much at the beginning of the game. You go there to dump off Bridget's body, right, at the beginning of the game after she's passed away and stuff. You go there to incinerate her body, and there you are at the end of the game, you know, choosing that difference, having that, like, him changing, deciding not to put something to rest, but rather to carry something on. And it's sort of like a full circle with the character and everything. It's really well done.
Yeah, his arc is actually really good. But by the end, I was so satisfied with his arc, because I was constantly asking questions. Like, they tell you in it, like his wife and child died in the void out, right? Because he has dooms. He came back, but his wife and child didn't, right? And then there's a point in the game where he starts calling BB Lou without there being any reason calling it, and then you find out, it's the name he would have given his kid if he would be born. All that arc is perfect, like from beginning to end for Sam's character. It's good. But let's quickly talk about the credits, where they're explaining everything to the credits, and you're constantly running and getting reset to the beach. What did you guys think of that? I found that fucking annoying after like 10 minutes. Like,
it's an interesting idea, but it's also kind of really
terribly done, man. Like, just explaining every time you stop running, like, you just want it to be over. Like,
did you get the second ending, which was the part where she's going to the beach, right? And you're just watching her walk to the beach, and if you let her go all the way and she turns the world ends.
Yeah, the whole
they make you retry. Yeah, that's like a game over screen.
It's just a sequel ending.
Kind of like
I tried shooting it though. But it wouldn't work. The bullets wouldn't work. So yeah.
Yeah, like to just sort of close off what I want to kind of say about the experience that I sort of had with the game. Like I feel like the performances and the story were what kind of lift this up to a 4. Because even though I'm saying like 4 out of 10, that makes you think that the entirety of the experience was dreadful, but I think it's elevated purely just because of its story and performances. Like I think it's one of the few times there's the scene right with Norman and Cliff, Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen at the end, right? Sam and Cliff at the end where they're talking. That's probably the most I feel like I've seen Norman Reedus act. Like when he that moment when he goes in between
He was very emotionless, like The Witcher.
The guy, yeah.
Die Hardman and Cliff, when he does that, you can really see that frantic like real desire to stop him from like he wants to stop him, but at the same time he realizes that he's not in control of anything that's going on here. He's just like an audience member to this in a way. But then like sort of like the look on his face and then the whole interaction between him and Mads Mikkelsen is probably the best acting that I've seen from Norman like ever. Like I mean, we've seen him in Walking Dead, right? And he's pretty much like the silent, kind of almost emotionless, kind of like the only time he was ever really emotional was when Merle died, right, in The Walking Dead. And he showed that was another instance where, but like here, you really get this idea of this frantic desire to not want. He doesn't want his dad to die, but at the same time, he knows he hasn't got control over this. Like he can't change the outcome of it. So like, I thought that was great.
It's a shame that a story and these story moments we remember so fondly, the game doesn't live up to that. You want the game to live up to that because we didn't want this game to fail. We wanted it to be great. We wanted to really love it. It's a shame that the gameplay never matched up to the story. All these great parts in the story, and like Baker says, man, like this could have been a film. Like, could this have been anything else? Yes, it could have been a good film, but was it a good game? I don't know, man. I think
you seem to have enjoyed it in some places of it, and you know that's fine. But like,
I gave it a 6. Right, I'm in between Evet, so Baker gave it a 4. I'm on a 6, and Evet's on an 8.6. Like I see your point of it. I just feel like cheated. I feel cheated.
And it's. So
I understand where you guys are going through because the whole experience, I can agree with you. It's kind of a pain.
It makes MGS5 look like I said this before. MGS5 look like a masterpiece.
MGS5 was great in comparison.
Yeah, there's like I remember every single character from MGS5, including Quiet. Like Quiet was like freaking awesome.
Well, she was a good character. Yeah. She had an arc as well, and but even the boss battles I remember, they may not have been as good as the old MGSs, but they were pretty decent. Like the Skull Unit, Man on Fire, Quiet, exactly. The intro, everything.
Each and every boss fight. Unlike this, the boss fights in this weren't. It felt like the game. The whole entire game was just you didn't feel anything until the cutscenes. The cutscenes was the only part that was good. Like unlike MGS5, you had the boss fight leading up to the cutscene, and then you felt that like wow, this is amazing kind of feeling. But we're hitting up to like an hour and 2.
That's cool. So. We can quickly say the music was good though. Just quickly, like music was amazing.
The soundtrack was great. Definitely. Really like added something.
Yeah, loves that.
Yeah. Well, it is a really good theme though.
It is.
It hits the ending. It hits the ending really well. Like it guts you when you're watching the ending at the same time listening to the BB's theme. You're like, oh man, I made it worse. Just the music combined with the whole sad theme to it.
Now you know why Sam was singing it. Like why Sam could whistle the theme because he used to sing it to him when he was in the pod, right? Like next to his mom's bed and stuff. Yeah.
But honestly, apart from those little inklings of greatness, it doesn't live up to Kojima's past sort of games. The MGS series, there hasn't been a boss. I still to this day, I don't think they've ever created. No one has replicated a boss similar to Psycho Mantis from MGS1. where you actually had to mess with the hardware on your console just to get an advantage over this boss. No one has really done anything like that.
The only game that actually messed with your hardware, and this is not even like a AAA game. This is Doki Doki. I'm talking about the novel game that messes with your hard drive and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that is something. Yeah, but that is something from the last decade, right? Sort of like 2018 or whenever it was. MGS1 came out in the late 90s. I had to remove your memory card and change your sources and stuff.
Your controllers as well.
Psycho Mantis would muck with everything.
Or the time changing one, where you actually change your time and you found out that the guy that
MGS3.
died.
MGS3, the end, isn't it? The end. I think that's the boss fight. He's like the old dude, and you mess with the calendar. And MGS2 as well has some interesting boss fights in it. You know, like Fat Man, whole kind of like bomb stuff. You got to find the bombs and all that kind of stuff. Like
even MGS5, which was light, right? You could like call a supply drop on top of a boss's head, and it would knock them out, right? Like little things like that. Even MGS5 had that, as scaled back as that was. You know what I mean?
So I was thinking, how much of Konami's fault was it?
This is what I want to say. I think the difference here is that I think it's Konami's fault for MGS5, because I think MGS5 was Kojima wanted it to probably be his swan song from gaming. I think he probably wanted to finish there and then, and do everything that he wanted to do with gaming, right? And sort of close that door. Konami wanted them to release it sooner than it was going to be able to be released, so they sort of forced his entire team to work faster, and then he had disputes and all that kind of stuff went down. But then Death Stranding was Kojima's fault, because I don't think he wanted to keep on making games anymore. I think he was done with experimenting, so I think he'd reached that point where
he's taking credit for all of it, so it's his fault, man. I don't have no one else to blame. Sony just gave him a truckload of money. That's it.
Death Stranding is his fault, but I think MGS5 is still Konami's fault. I still feel like they're responsible for that, because I do feel that Kojima wanted that to be his swan song, but obviously then he wanted to create a game out of probably the last remnants of what MGS5 would have been. He carried over to make an entire game, and it just sort of fell flat. That's probably why he said the last 50% of it was good, because the last 50% is pretty much everything he probably wanted to put in the end of MGS5 in some manner or form, but just wasn't able to because of Konami. So, like, I mean, who knows at the end of the day, really? We don't know the entirety of what actually happened at Konami. Maybe there was more to it than we know. But all I know for sure is that MGS5, having been pushed out as early as it was, did suffer as a result, and that's Konami. Konami's schedule wanted it out when they wanted it out, and Kojima didn't have much of a choice. So
I'm glad Kojima's released a divisive game, because now he won't be this idol worship that goes for him, where everyone gives him the benefit of the doubt, even if he creates a game that isn't the best. I think people will now think twice about being too praiseworthy for him. They'll actually critically look at his games now and actually score properly, not like give him an 86 on Metacritic for a game that is just not fun, man, even for fans. Man. It didn't sell well either. It didn't sell like MGS numbers, even though they were expecting. I mean, it's not in the top 20 best-selling PlayStation games of that year. So I can only imagine it sold less. It sold less than Days Gone. It sold less than Days Gone. Like so.
Yeah, so I suppose we should close this out now. I think we've reached all the points. We've just sort of hitting a dead horse. Yeah, so we should finish.
It's still recording though, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just finish it here, and we'll sort of just end with our scores, I guess, or just repeating our scores again. So I was a 4 out of 10. If you guys want to kind of sort of do your scores, and maybe
I was 6 out of 10, but I was lenient. I was being lenient.
After this conversation, I feel like I should like knock it down a little bit. I did give it a 8.6, but
okay.
It's still in the 8 range for me. At least I can give it the lowest I can.
Give it IGN score. I think IGN 7.9. Okay, IGN
Yeah.
had a good score, a really
I
accurate score.
I feel
Yeah,
I feel
IGN
maybe
was
Yvette,
the most
think
critical.
of other games that maybe you feel are 8 to 9s and compare it to Death Stranding. Would you think Death Stranding is the same? You've got the same feeling and passion and love for that game as you did these other games that maybe
No,
you thought.
you have a
Okay.
point, but yeah, I'm still gonna keep it. The lowest I can is 7.9.
Okay, so 7 point. We'll go with 7.9 for your final score. 4 out of 10 for me, and 6 out of 10 for Moen. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.